Good afternoon and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Angus Council. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when speaking. Prior to the commencement of the business, I'd like to welcome Councillor Cruikshanks to his first meeting of Angus Council. Would you like to say a few words?
Provost, fellow councillors and guests, it is with a deep sense of responsibility and gratitude that I sit before you today as the newly elected councillor for Arbroath West, Letham and Freecombe. The trust bestowed upon me by the residents of these communities is a sacred duty, one that I pledge to uphold with unwavering dedication and integrity. I extend my sincere appreciation to former Councillor Fairweather for his service and to the Council staff for their tireless commitment to our communities. As I embark on this new role, I am acutely aware of the challenges that lie ahead and the opportunities we have to effect meaningful change in the lives of those we serve. To the people of Arbroath West, Letham and Freecombe, I make this solemn promise. Your voices will be heard, your concerns will be addressed, and your aspirations will be at the forefront of every decision I make. I will work tirelessly to champion your interests and to forge a path towards a brighter, more prosperous future for all. Collaboration and unity will be the hallmarks of my tenure. I will actively seek common ground with my fellow councillors, harnessing our collective wisdom and expertise to tackle the issues that matter most to our constituents. Together, we will foster an environment of innovation, efficiency and excellence in local governance. The journey ahead may not be easy, but I am ready to rise to the challenge. With your support and the strength of our shared resolve, I have no doubt that we can build a stronger, more vibrant Angus, a place where local businesses thrive, where essential services are delivered seamlessly, and where every resident has the opportunity to flourish. So let us unite in this noble endeavour, setting aside our differences and focusing on the common good. Together, we will write a new chapter in the story of Angus, one marked by progress, prosperity and pride in our communities. Thank you, and I look forward to serving alongside each and every one of you.
Thank you very much and well done. You want? Yep, okay.
Thank you, Provost. And on behalf of myself as leader and the administration group, I'd like to welcome Jack to the Council, offer congratulations on his victory and look forward to having a constructive working relationship. It's a big learning curve becoming an elected member, and my door is always open if there's ever any occasion when you need some help. Welcome.
And thank you for that, Councillor Whiteside. We'll now move on to apologies for absence.
Yes, Provost, we have apologies from Councillors McLaren and Louise Nicholl.
Thank you very much. Moving on to number 2, declarations of interest. I have a declaration of interest with motion 5.1 housing emergency. I have companies with various properties in them. Also in my register of interests, I have personal rental properties under my name as well. I will vacate the chair and leave the meeting at that point in time. Is there any further declarations of interest? No, thank you. Right, minutes of council meetings. We are here to submit for approval as correct records the minutes of the meetings of A, Special Council 29th February 2024 and B, Angus Council of March 2024. Are these approved? Yes. Thank you. Moving on to number 4, the possible exclusion of public and press. Do we agree to exclude the public and press for item number 9? Agreed, thank you. Motions in standing order. This is when I will vacate the room and the Deputy Provost will take over. Thank you.
Afternoon, colleagues. Okay, item 5 is a housing emergency. Councillor Scott, I'm going to speak to your motion, Councillor.
Sorry, Deputy Provost, do you want me to read the motion or do you want me just to speak to it? Just speak to it, John. Thank you. I brought this motion today as I know through talking to many of you across the chamber that we all have residents contacting us about housing, and I know that many of you, if not all, will have concerns. We know that there are issues. The residents of Angus know there are issues, and I want us to be able to discuss this openly in chamber. This is not political. I'm not here to point the finger of blame. I hope to reach cross-party consensus on a plan to move forward. According to Shelter Scotland, 1.5 million people are living in overcrowded, dangerous, unstable or unaffordable housing. The Chartered Institute of Housing states legislation won't solve Scotland's housing emergency without urgent investment in the delivery of more social housing. Noting that last week 80 million was announced to bring empty properties back into use, we cannot forget the 196 million decrease in the latest Scottish Government budget for new build affordable homes. We are behind with new builds expected in the Angus Local Development Plan, noting that we are now to use the Mathler figures, which is a minimum amount of housing required at 255 units per year. If sites allocated cannot be delivered, then we need to look at new innovative ways to open up more ground, and the Scottish Government needs to provide the funds for good quality, energy efficient homes that are so badly needed. The next local development plan is not due until 2029. We cannot sit in limbo. We need an interim plan to get Angus building. I have stats, but I don't think you'll need to hear them, so I'll move on. I personally am contacted by people who are struggling to get a house, are overcrowded, their house does not meet their medical needs, or have outstanding repairs or are awaiting a new bathroom. We currently have 316 voids across Angus. Let's not think of that as merely a number. Each of those is a home that someone desperately needs. Some of these voids are due to Storm Babette, which has put increased pressure on housing in Angus. We do not know the outcome of the mapping and auctioneering exercise, and that will inform the decisions that we make on the future of those homes. We as councillors must not only look at the but also the financial cost of voids. If we assume that these voids are one bedroom at £66.04 approximately per week, then every week they sit void, that is over £20,000 in rent loss. Whilst there has been progress on voids, they are still sitting empty for far too long. Voids should be a constantly moving figure where properties are empty and then let out pace to minimise not only the human cost of waiting to be housed, but the financial impact. Although I've called for a housing emergency, some of the issues can be resolved by Angus Council, but we need more funding from government to help build the affordable housing we need. A home is a basic human need. It is a thing that we build our lives around. We have all said that we are committed to tackling inequality, eradicating poverty, the cost of living crisis and reducing the attainment gap. So if we truly are committed, then I'd ask you to support my motion today. Thank you. Apologies, we've got a wee technical.
Deputy Provost, we can't hear anything on here.
Technical fault, Dominic.
Testing 1, 2, 3. You didn't realise I was a singer in a band, did you? I was.
Right, you've went quiet again.
Not hearing yet, Tommy.
Got you now.
Okay, I'll make sure that I speak loudly. It's never been a problem in my past. I omitted to say earlier, Councillor Scott, do you... Okay, Councillor Don, I'm going to manage to get you to speak, do you think? I think there has been a recess needed, to be perfectly honest. We'll try 5 minutes.
Can we stop the live stream, please?
Sorry about that, folks. We need to find a shilling for the meter, I think, the next time. Okay, as before, we have a seconder, and that's Councillor Doran. Would you like to speak, please, Heather?
Thank you. I'm not going to say too much more than what Councillor Scott has already said, because I think she's outlined it very clearly. I'll just say all of us have been exposed to some incredibly difficult situations relating to housing in Angus. And all the work that I've done in this area has been very different. And I think that highlights that there isn't a single fix to this situation. It's a complex one. It's a short-term and a long-term one. It spans, it needs tackling by Angus Council and beyond that as well. It's important that we have appropriate, accessible and suitable housing that meets the needs of the people. And in the Montefieth area, it's a particular challenge. I've spoken to people who've been waiting for years to access some housing. And it's not all about social housing either, that's part of it, but it's also about availability of housing across the whole of Angus in the social and private sector. And there are multiple challenges here to address. So I think I want to support this motion to focus some work in this area going forward and to put the focus on housing in Angus. It's a Scotland-wide issue, but it needs some local solutions to these challenges that can only come from the action we take as a council. Now I'm not quite sure what I do with the mic.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Straight to questions, if we may.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. It's not a question, it's in. No.
Can I ask you just to wait?
Yes, just to give notice that we do have an amendment to this motion.
I'd ask you to speak to your amendment then, Councillor. Once again, can I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Cowdy at the back there. Go ahead, Councillor Brazen.
Right. My amendment is an amendment of the direct negative to the motion, which means that our amendment is that we reject Councillor Scott's motion, and we ask Council to reject Councillor Scott's motion. So very simple, and I don't think it needs written down or repeated. And this sounds really brutal to use the word rejection in relation to Councillor Scott's motion, well seconded by Councillor Doran, because in actual fact there probably isn't any difference whatsoever in our sentiment regarding housing in Angus and our desire, and that extends to everyone and all officers, about our desire to see improvement in all aspects of it. So as a bit of explanation here as to why we thought it necessary to reject this. Councillor Scott's motion calls for Angus Council to declare a housing emergency. We don't believe that in our particular circumstances, declaring a housing emergency will make any tangible difference to our ability to improve the housing of our tenants, nor the prospects of those in Angus who seek housing. Everyone in this chamber and everyone in our housing service accepts that voids are at an unacceptable level and have been for a number of years. Actually, over the last couple of years, there's been something just over 20% of a reduction in voids, but the number is still far too high. Having so many houses sitting empty when there is a high level of demand for affordable social housing is an issue that is of great concern to all of us, and tackling it is a main priority of this administration. The high level of voids is closely linked to the time it takes us to get repairs done during tenancy changeovers. On the 30th of April, report 140/24 came to P&R committee, detailing action that could be taken to speed up repairs and seeking committee's approval to take that action. Due to a requirement for commercial confidentiality, that report was on green paper and not available to the public, but it was and is available to all councillors. Committee gave that approval, and we believe it to be a major step forward. The Housing Improvement Plan comes to Communities Committee on the 11th of June and will address all areas deemed a priority. Officers have worked long and hard on this plan. Asking them to create any new action plan would duplicate effort and weaken our resource to implement our new housing improvement plan. That's the last thing anyone in our housing service needs, particularly our frontline staff, whose dedication and commitment during Storm Babbitt and every day since has been quite remarkable. And again, I salute them for it. Our council leader is in regular contact with the Housing Minister. Angus Council is working closely with the Scottish Government regarding Brechin's recovery from Storm Babbitt. He takes a keen personal interest in this matter and is well aware of the knock-on effect of Storm Babbitt on our housing service throughout Angus. The council leader has already reached out to the newly appointed First Minister. Councillor Scott's motion mentions 3 points requiring focus. We believe implementation of our forthcoming housing improvement plan will deal with these as we move forward. I'd add that I sit on the COSLA Housing Special Interest Group, which has input to the Scottish Government's Housing Investment Task Force. At our meeting on Tuesday, we discussed ideas on how investment from out with the public sector might play a bigger role in funding social housing, helping to speed up the provision of extra, much-needed properties. We can't agree to Councillor Scott's motion, but I'm actually glad she brought it forward. It's a stark reminder that whilst I've always made it clear I like a more collegiate and collaborative approach to all matters housing, perhaps I haven't been proactive enough in seeking that collaboration across the chamber. If that's the case, then I apologise. There is a lot of particular experience and knowledge held among some councillors, including Councillor Scott, that could be much better utilised, I'm sure. Colleagues, maybe it's time we looked at how we might all work together better around housing, and maybe in a different, perhaps even more formalised way, and I'm open to any suggestions as to how that might be advanced. Please support my amendment.
Before I go to questions, I can see Councillor Cowdery's hand up. Councillor, would you like to speak?
Just going to say yes. Thank you. Councillor Brays has summarised everything perfectly, so I'm not going to say much more in terms of seconding this amendment, but I would just say, really, for me, I very much welcome and agree with Councillor Scott's sentiments around non-party political collaboration wherever possible. And I think on this, for me, it's just about giving our housing team the opportunity to make the housing improvement plan work, because it is coming, it's coming imminently. So I'd like the opportunity for them to get that going and make it work without changing course at this point. Thank you.
All right, at this point, we would ask any member who wishes to ask a question. And I did notice that Councillor Nicholl, you had your hand up earlier. Do you still want to ask a question?
It's not a question, it's a comment.
A comment. You wanted? I beg your pardon, sorry. Questions at this point? Councillor Speed? Anybody else other than Councillor Speed? It's difficult to see you, so just make it known to me. At this point, I've got Councillor Speed. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. With homelessness increasing now in Angus and increasing need for temporary accommodation and use of bed and breakfast, when do the council think that we will be in a better position to assist those applicants with permanent housing faster? That's my first question. My second question is with the number of complex and higher need medical cases on the list and this increasing as the population of older people increases, how will we as a council cope with demand and the competing demands of homelessness? And is the key to the current situation not getting more funding to allow us to be able to build more stock?
Thank you, Councillor. And while we're just doing our usual furniture and arrangement, I just ask if there's anybody else with a question, make it known to me, please. And I can see Councillor Gregg. Councillor, can I ask you to bear with me for a minute, please? I'm just going to get an officer to come in just now and answer a question. Is that okay? And the officer is Claire Greenhill, and I've not met her yet, so I didn't know.
Good afternoon, councillors. Councillor Speed, in relation to your first question, we're actually seeing a decrease in homeless presentations in Angus. This year we've seen quite a substantial drop from the previous year. We're busy calculating our figures for our charter return, and the current figures we saw over the last year, we've had 471 homeless presentations in Angus. To the previous year, we had 614. We've also seen a reduction in the length of time of stay in temporary accommodation again this year. That's down from 155 days last year to 139 days this year. We have seen a slight breach in the number of unsuitable placements in bed and breakfast, and we've identified that's been as a result of the period between October and January when we paused allocations because of Storm Babette, and therefore there was no allocations being made and not freeing up in temporary accommodation. So Angus has seen a very different position in terms of its homelessness figures in relation to the rest of Scotland at the current time. In terms of, like, if I can just touch on funding, obviously we brought the SHIP to committee in November, and that was prior to the announcement of the budget cuts in February. So we are at the current time reviewing with our partners around our SHIP programme. Obviously, we've seen a budget cut of around 9 million from our SHIP programme, and we're also just got confirmation at the end of March of our resource planning assumption for the financial year ahead. So we're meeting with partners in the next couple of weeks to review our current SHIP programme in terms of our new build delivery and how that then impacts on, moving forward with our programme for new builds this year.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just wondered if those numbers, those figures that you say are decreasing in terms of homelessness, do they include people that present as homeless but get turned away or get encouraged to go back and live with family or friends or find an alternative sofa to sleep on? Does that include those presentations?
That includes everybody that makes a statutory homeless application with us. So that isn't people that then go on and are given a live homeless priority. That's everybody that comes through the door and makes that statutory homeless application with us.
You're right, Councillor Speed. Councillor Gregg was the next person with his hand up for a question.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. If I can also ask Ms Greenhill, with regards to emergency accommodation if someone presents as homeless, I know you touched on there were some breaches of that between October and January, which is understandable because of Storm Babette. Excuse me. If someone does present requiring emergency accommodation for whichever reason, whether it's homelessness or for anything else, is there a time limit that they can spend in that, or are there guidelines for that? How long should they or should they not be in that temporary accommodation before moved on to temporary housing?
Okay. In terms of if someone's placed into our temporary accommodation and it's one of our own dispersed units or one of our partners' units, there is no timescale of how long somebody should stay in temporary accommodation. Ours is our current, as I said, our current position at the moment is someone on average is spending around 139 days in temporary accommodation. If someone's placed into a B&B placement, they're only allowed to be in there for a 7-day period, and after that we would be seen as breaching the unsuitable accommodation order. That used to just have conditions for pregnant women and children, but now includes everybody, so we have to record those breaches to the Scottish Government.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Councillor. Any more questions? I'll move on to comments. Councillor Nicholl. I'll just tell you who I've got so we get it right. I've got Councillor Nicholl, I've got Councillor Whiteside. No? Okay, it's Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Doran. Councillor Gregg. And Councillor Scott. And back to Councillor Speed. Now, is that everybody? Just going to have a wee minute and look online. Okay, that's everybody, I think. Councillor Nicholl, who's been very patiently waiting.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. We know that there's a housing crisis with a lack of quality, affordable social housing. We rely on the private sector house builders to deliver affordable housing we need. There is allocated ground, but these have not all been developed. The local development plan will not be renewed until 2029. If we wait until then, it would be 2033 before the first bricks would be laid. In the meantime, the demand for housing is increasing every day. House builders going out of business at the highest rate during the 2023 year, and 64% of the house builders are not confident they will survive the next 12 months. This would be a disaster for those requiring housing and the Angus economy. Therefore, we require an interim local plan now that opens up the ground for development. Angus Council needs to urgently deal with the high number of void tenancies. It is on record that the voids in Angus have gone from the best in the country to the worst in the country, and the general payer stats are not much better. Why has this happened? It is clear to me that we need to call a housing emergency to ask the government provides the vital funding we need to allow us to provide much needed homes. Thank you very much, Deputy Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholl and Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Nobody is disagreeing in this room other than in the terms of declaring a housing emergency. I think we need to look at what a housing emergency actually is. I asked after Storm Babette whether or not, as the convener of the Communities Committee, we should be declaring a housing emergency, and officers were adamant that that was not required. I've subsequently asked since to ask if it was required, and they were of the opinion that it wasn't. What we have done in the interim is taken a huge focus on housing, where we've arranged regular meetings directly with senior housing officers, something that's not happened before. And we've also put in place a plan that is coming to the next Communities Committee that will address all of the asks in the motion. I also want to admit a failure here, actually, because I did say my door was always open for people that wanted to bring things forward. And maybe when it comes to what we're doing with housing, we needed to be much more collegiate in what we were saying the plan was. I suppose when you're actually formulating the strategy and then going to be presenting it, we could have been maybe a bit clearer as to where we were coming with that. In terms of what the questions about Scottish Government and asking for more money and things like that, that's already being done. That's already been done at the most senior level that we can do it. And we have a plan. That's the main point. Everybody's asking for a plan. Now, Councillor Bray alluded to the fact that we are looking to try and get some sort of arrangement together entirely across council that everyone can take part in. Don't know how that's going to be. Would appreciate any input as to what any of the council members want that to be, or how we can facilitate it. But when I first became the communities convener, I spoke with Councillor Fairweather at the time, who I think was leading for the opposition, about how we could work together to deal with the problems that we've got. I still think that that's the right strategy. I still think that's the right way forward. So what we're actually wanting to do here is not burden officers with more administrative tasks when the plan is and coming to the next communities committee. And what I would say is that housing is actually going to be one of my priorities as the communities convener, and it's the thing that I want to be judged on, which is a brave thing to say given our track record sometimes on housing. But genuinely, that's the thing that I think we need to get most right. We've already made significant changes behind the scenes. We've already made significant progress on voids. And I also said that I wasn't going to play party politics on this, so I'll not address Councillor Nicholl's point about how did we get into the void situation directly. But I think the whole committee knows the issues that we've had in housing, the problems that we've had, and how to take things forward. So this is not coming from a place of negativity that we've put this amendment in. It's coming from a place of wanting to work together, already have the plan in place. I just hope that members take that and you know, we all acknowledge the issues that we've got, and I want to be judged on the plan that we're putting in place and the outcomes of that.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. And on the list, Councillor Doran.
Thank you. I just want to address what the council is saying if we do a housing emergency. We are saying that the council is handling both now and in the future and the complex issue of housing. This is, as noted, is a national issue as well as a local one. The call came originally from Shelter Scotland around the housing emergency. And are we sending a strong enough message about how we tackle housing if we do not declare a housing emergency? If we declare one, we're sending a clear message that there is more resource that's needed, more support that's needed, and more work that's needed, issues which we're all addressing do exist. So that would be my question to people around a decision around whether or not they agree with the motion or with the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. It's Councillor Gregg I've got next.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. What can I say? I completely and utterly, wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Scott's motion. I know that work is being done from the Council's point of view to try and address the void situation. I have many times at Full Council asked for figures around the voids and never been able to get them. I did ask again more recently for a figure on the voids, and I was told to put in a Freedom of Information request. So I don't know what figures are to be hidden or things like that, but I'd thank you to Councillor Scott for actually providing me with some of the figures that some of the council officers wouldn't or didn't want to. She explained in her brief there that we have over 300 voids, which is costing a lot of money that we're not getting in revenue. I've also found that currently we've got 71 here in Forfar, 71 voids. I know that there's a high demand for property in Forfar, and I know that of one resident I've literally just been dealing with who was placed into emergency accommodation in the form of bed and breakfast, He should have only been in there for a week. He was in there for nearly 4 before he was given temporary accommodation. So is there a housing emergency? I would absolutely say yes, there is. With regards to building new properties, we don't have the money to do that. We need help from the Scottish Government, but that's going to become even more difficult when they've cut their affordable housing supply budget by £196 million. What would also maybe make things a little bit easier, as was touched upon at the Scrutiny and Audit Committee on the 23rd, in the financial bulletin, which was 4.8, there's been a 2.8% cut in real terms to our budget as a council from the Scottish Government. A large amount of the money that we get is ring-fenced, and we can only spend it on specific things, which reduces our ability to be able to spend it in other areas where we might need to, perhaps housing, if that was to be the decision of us as a council. As we can't build them because we don't have the money, we need, as I've said, we need help from the Scottish Government, but we also need to look at the local development plan because it clearly does not work and is not suitable, especially in here in Forfar. We've got developers here in Forfar that want to build and can't. One is between the Westfield Loan, Glams Road area. It's part of the local development plan. It's down there for building residential properties.
Councillor, I'm just going to ask you to steer clear and just stay on your subject, please. Thank you. Thank you.
There are developers that want to build new social housing in Forfar as part of their developments, and with parts of the local development where they've put in applications and it's then refused for various other whole load of different reasons. And then we have other developers that again want to build properties within Forfar, but because the piece of land that they want to use isn't part of the local development plan, again it's refused. So there's a lot more to be looked at than just what we as a council can do with reducing voids, which is welcome, and I totally and utterly support that, and we'll work with Councillor MacDonald and anyone else to try and achieve that goal. But as Councillor Scott's mentioned in her motion, number 3, we're concerned that there may be a shortage of social and private properties in Angus, and we need to consider an interim plan to tackle this. This is where we need to look at the local development plan. This is where we need to get support from the Scottish Government, more support from the Scottish Government, in order to address these things. So is there a housing emergency? I would absolutely 100% say yes, that there is.
Now, if we just keep the microphone there, I'm going to ask Councillor Scott. Thank you, Councillor Gregg.
Just in regards to, thank you, Deputy Provost. Is that, you hear me? Yeah. In regards to Councillor Bray's amendment, I'm not asking for separate work. There's a plan coming forward, so I'm not asking for another plan. However, you have just heard that £9 million has been removed from the SHIP. If that's not an emergency, then I don't know what is. And the only people that can provide that is the government. But we're clearly not willing to go and ask them for the money. You say there's conversations going in the background, and I'm sure there is. I totally appreciate, Mark and Kenny, the work that you've put in, and I know that you have put in a huge amount of work. However, the public, you will be no different from me when I'm sure that your email, your inbox is full, your phone goes all the time, people are desperate. If we're truly going to help people, you know, there's people overcrowded, there's mums and dads sleeping in living rooms so that they can give their kids a bedroom. If we are truly going to help people, then we need government money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, and I'm going to ask Councillor Speed to speak next.
Thank you. Yeah, I think all too often it's too easy for decision makers to just sit and say, you know, there is no crisis, there's nothing to see here, and take decisions. But unless you've actually been affected by those experiences, by those crisis situations that many of our constituents are experiencing, then I think, you know, it maybe is too easy for some decision makers to make a statement or to take the right decision. Since being elected, constituents have been approaching me about their housing situations, whether social housing or the private sector. They are looking for affordable and quality housing that meets their needs. I too, like Councillor Gregg, have been asking for figures, for statistics, and haven't always gotten the answers. As a council, we have let 2,638 houses since 2019, yet we have seen our waiting list increase from 2,773 to 5,544 applicants during that time. The waiting list has doubled in 4 years. Since 2020, we have seen homeless applications increase from 499 to 614. That's a 23% increase in homelessness within Angus. I appreciate the comments and the feedback that I received earlier, and I'll be looking for further kind of assurances around that homelessness figure that was given earlier. In terms of housing, as has been described, we have families that are living on top of each other. We have newborn babies coming into this world to live in cramped, unsatisfactory conditions in housing that is not fit for purpose. For those with physical disabilities where properties are adapted for wheelchair use, we only have 37 properties, and yet an increase in need from these applicants. This is leading to longer waiting times, impacting on every single aspect of someone's life, their mental health, their quality of life, their education, social, employment outcomes. People are not able to meet their most basic needs, such as being able to have a proper wash or attend to personal care. They're not able to have a shower. I don't think any of us today would be sitting here if we were not able to get a shower this morning before we came to council. That's not just people living in these situations for a few days or a few weeks or a few months. People are living in these situations for years because we do not have enough stock. With only 24 new builds and 19 open market acquisitions in 2023, new supply to the council will not fill the gap and is not able to help those with the greatest needs.
Being very lenient, I want you to come to an end,
Okay,
please, I'm going to get the planner to come in and answer some of your questions.
Thank you. We are seeing cuts, as has been mentioned, in the affordable housing grant from Scottish Government. We will not see waiting lists decrease unless these emergency measures are in place. In fact, it will not just be years nor decades, but centuries until we are able to tackle waiting list times due to the current rate of new build and open market acquisitions. I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. And just, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to ask Senior Planner Jill Patterson to come in just for a minute.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I just wanted to respond on a couple of the commentary regarding the local development plan and really make a distinction between housing land and housing supply, because the two are not the same, effectively. Our housing land supply, and I would reiterate to members that the local development plan actually allocates land to 2026. So we have a number of housing sites to take us forward to that particular period. We recently published our housing land audit in 2023. And that is showing that we actually have a very healthy land supply that meets the government targets in terms of our position within Angus. Availability of sites is reliant on the private market. We cannot enforce private sector house builders to come forward with sites if that is not within their build programme or doesn't fit with some of those challenges that the housing market face from a private sector perspective. Costs of construction are going up. That is having an impact on the delivery of those private sector homes. It is not the supply of land, which, as I mentioned earlier, is plentiful within the Angus area. Challenges around mortgage availability, again, are affecting the private housing supply market and some of those smaller builders within that market as well. House builders will tell you that conditions are extremely challenging for them, and if the sales aren't there, they simply won't build within that area. We could supply 3 times the amount of land. If the sales, as I say, are not in place, then we're unlikely to build that. So I just wanted to make that distinction and clarify some of the figures in relation to our housing land audit, which is actually showing within the minimum annual 10-year housing land requirement, which is a 10-year requirement within Angus, is 2,550 units. Our effective housing land supply within Angus at the moment for 2023 to 2033 is 2,546 units. Thank you, Provost. Deputy Provost.
Point of clarification, Deputy Provost.
Sure, go ahead.
for the Councillor Gregg and for Councillor Speed, Councillor Speed. Apologies, Councillor Speed. If you've asked for figures and not received them, it's incredibly disappointing. And I would just ask that in those circumstances, that you, as the convener of the Communities Committee, you get in touch directly with me if you're not getting what you expect. And what we'll do is obviously go back and find out what's going on there, because if you have asked for specific figures and they are available, they should be. So say if you've had a situation where you've not had them through, just give me a shout and I'll do everything that I can, okay?
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. And I'm going to beg your indulgence, colleagues, because I'd like to ask Officer Alison Smith, who's asked to talk. Alison, you're quite happy to do that? Then I'll take Councillor Braze, Councillor Fotheringham and Councillor Wan, and I think that's everybody that's indicated to me, but if I've got it wrong, please let me know.
Thank you. It was just a point of clarification in terms of current waiting lists. We currently have 2,548 live applications and 303 homeless applications.
Thank you, Alison. We now have Councillor Braze, followed by Councillor Fotheringham, followed by Councillor Wan.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Provost. And since I put my hand up, there's been an awful lot of clarification given, and I don't really need to say an awful lot now about this, but I would like to say that there are various councils across Scotland who have declared a housing emergency, and if I sat in one of those councils, I certainly would be too. On Angus Council, though, we have clearly, the figures are backing up, falling numbers of homelessness. And we've got reducing voids that are going to make more homes available in order to house more homeless people. That's the figures that we're working on. And I think that for us to go and declare a housing emergency when our officers are telling us that we don't have a housing emergency in Angus, I think that kind of weakens the arguments that those councils that clearly do have massive problems with homelessness are trying to argue. So, yeah, as I've said before, so much share the sentiment of this motion, but these are the reasons why I can't agree to it.
Thank you, Councillor Braze. We now have Councillor Fotheringham.
Thank you very much, Deputy Provost. As Councillor Scott's title of our motion is Housing Emergency, I fully support it. As far as I'm concerned, there is a housing emergency. As I convene the Scrutiny and Audit Committee, Councillor Speed and Councillor Gregg have asked on umpteen occasions for housing voids, and I know Councillor MacDonald's touched on it just now. So much so that I have asked for a scrutiny audit to be done on housing. But what I'm going to intimate in this chamber now, not just a scrutiny audit, I'm going to ask now for a full scrutiny review on housing, because this is not on. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Wan first, and then I'm going to go to the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Just a very quick one. I know we've spent a bit of time on this, but it is an important motion, I believe. And again, I will be supporting Councillor Scott's motion for the housing emergency. We've obviously heard round the chamber today that everybody wants to work together, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And thanks very much, Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Brace, for that offer. Disappointing that I am hearing that members of the opposition group and others aren't receiving information from officers when asked. I do realise that they're busy and there may be some time to get back, but to not come back at all is very disappointing, and I don't think we should have to go to the convener of communities or any other person to get that information. We are elected members and we should be receiving information when requested. So I would like the officers to maybe take a note of that and make sure that when somebody is asking for something that's sensible, that it does come back. I would touch with the leader on that maybe as well at some time. Beth, if we can maybe have a chat about that, because again, this is a disappointing revelation today, and something I would rather not have been raised at this meeting, and it could have been dealt with in private, so the officers were given an opportunity to reply rather than just here, but it is disappointing. So basically on that basis, there is a housing emergency. We've heard it, we've heard pleas from other councillors. not in the opposition group, the non-aligned. And I would ask the administration if they could really just take note of that. The officers are maybe telling us that there isn't an emergency. We're obviously hearing differently from constituents. I'm sure you're hearing the same. So can we maybe come to some kind of consensus on this and maybe just agree that there is actually an emergency that we want to highlight? And we would ask the SNP administration if they would like to join us in agreeing to this motion and withdrawing their amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor One. Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Deputy Provost, and thanks for the comments. And like Councillor Brays and Councillor MacDonald, motivation and sentiments behind the motion, and I hope that the offer to work collaboratively is taken up. I'm sure Councillor Fotheringham is very well aware of the emergency, having been the housing SAR when the current administration took over. I would like to confirm I have been in very recent contact with Housing Minister, and I'm told that there will be paperwork coming through very shortly regarding the ongoing recovery in Brechin, which is very welcome, and the several committees that are being set up in collaboration with the Scottish Government in order to take the recovery forward. So I look forward to that in the very, very near future. And like Councillor Brays and Councillor MacDonald, the declaring of an emergency is not the appropriate action, and I commend the housing staff for the action that we heard about this morning, actually, for those of you that attended the briefing about the recovery plan, and that was very useful and very interesting. If anybody didn't make it this morning, they will be able to get the slides and follow up for more information. So thank you, Councillor Scott, for the motion, but I support Councillor Bray's position at this stage.
Thank you, colleagues. And before I bring this to a close, I'm going to ask our Chief Exec to come in. He's going to have a microphone, though.
Thank you very much, Deputy Provost, for the opportunity just to address the matter of allegations that a member has been advised to submit a Freedom of Information request to access basic data, and just to assure members that that's certainly not the approach that I would like our staff to take. I would similarly expect that myself or a senior member of the team would have that escalated by any member in the chamber today who receives that kind of response, because we'd like to address it directly with the staff members concerned as and when such examples arise. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Now we come to the part where I would ask Councillor Scott, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I've not got anything prepared. I thought what I would do is just wait and see what came forward. So, yeah, I'm pretty shocked, to be honest. To the Leader of the Council, Councillor Whiteside, I acknowledge that you're saying Brechin and Storm Babette, and that, you know, there's things coming forward. That isn't the crisis. Yes, it's had an impact on housing, but it hasn't caused the crisis. And obviously that recovery is very, very important. Councillor Brays, you are discussing a P&R paper, a green paper. I haven't actually seen that one myself, but I will go and read it when I get home, that acknowledges repairs. On my way home today, I'm actually going to go and see a resident, a tenant of Angus Council, who has been waiting on repairs for 6 years. So this is the reason that I brought this chamber today, so that we could debate this openly. Not, like I said, I'm not finger pointing, not blaming anybody, but our constituents, our tenants are not happy, and my inbox is full, as I know as Councillor Speeds and many others. The emergency is the £9 million missing from the ship. So if that's not an emergency, I don't know how much more money they need to remove from us, but 9 million we're down. And all I'm asking is that we acknowledge that 196 million has been removed from the affordable housing budget by the Scottish Government, and they will not reinstate that money unless we call for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Brace, do you want to sum up?
Oh,
no, I beg your pardon, that's my fault. There's no opportunity to do that, Councillor Brace, I beg your pardon. So I'm just going to take a little bit of it. Interesting one. I'll go over to our colleague Sarah, who will need the microphone. I'd really just like to say thank you for your forbearance. Well done.
Sorry, just before we go to the vote, for those that don't have a microphone, I think you'll just need to shout because I'll hang on to this one if that's okay. So the motion by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Doran, is to declare a housing emergency as detailed within the published papers. The amendment by Councillor Brace, seconded by Councillor Cowdy, is to reject the motion. Please vote motion or amendment. Deputy Provost.
Amendment.
Councillor Beattie.
Amendment.
Councillor Bell.
Amendment.
Councillor Brace. Councillor Cheap. Councillor Cowdy. Councillor Cruikshanks. Councillor Devine. Councillor Doran. Councillor Duff. Councillor Durno. Councillor Fotheringham. Councillor Gall. Councillor Gregg. Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Meakin. Councillor Melville. Councillor Gavin Nicol. Councillor Proctor.
Motion.
Councillor Scott. Councillor Shepherd.
Amendment.
Councillor Speed. Councillor Stewart.
Motion.
Councillor Wan. Councillor Whiteside. The amendment is carried by 14 votes to 11.
Thanks once again. Just to be a little bit of a hiatus while we get the Provost back to his rightful seat. Thank you again.
John, could we just stop the live stream while we get the Provost, please?
We're now on to our second motion of the afternoon, which is Disability Employment Charter. Councillor Doran will speak to this motion. And do you also have a seconder? Who's your seconder? Lovely. Okay, and therefore I'll let you go ahead with your motion.
There we go. So thank you. So in this motion, one thing I wanted to do was raise awareness of the Disability Employment Charter and ask Angus Council to take steps towards this charter and signing it. What I would really like to see is the council signing it in the future. And I also wanted to recognise that Angus Council, as an employer, has already taken steps and commitments for promoting opportunities for all, and has already voluntarily published the disability pay gap data. But in this motion, I want to solidify this commitment going forward publicly and ask for support from all the other councillors here today to ensure the council is doing all it can to support people who have a disability in the workplace and to join the workplace as well. The Charter was established in 2021 by a group of nations, highlighting some of the challenges in this area and also asking for steps that government could take to make this situation better. In 2022-2023, the disability employment gap was 31.6% in Scotland, so there's still quite a lot of work to be done. And so I wanted to highlight the Charter and ask Council to do more work towards this. Thank you.
Lovely. And your seconder?
I've got nothing else to add apart from what Heather said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott. So we'll move on to questions on this motion. Questions? Question from Councillor Speed.
Thank you. Yeah, can I please have an explanation as to why we can't sign up to the Charter, please?
I think Mrs Falconer might be able to answer that one. Is she here or?
Oh, Linda Thompson.
My apologies, it's Linda Thompson that will answer that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're more than happy to be committed to fulfilling the aspirations of this charter. We're doing, as councillors mentioned, quite a lot of the work already. Some of it is more challenging than others. So some of the suggestions in here are about having a particular percentage of people who are disabled in our workforce. That's one of our biggest challenges, is encouraging people to disclose their protected characteristics. So it'd be very difficult for us to ever prove that we've done that. So that's one of the biggest challenges for us, and we do a lot to try and encourage people to tell us about their protected characteristics, but we can't force them to. So that's one of the bigger challenges to us. But you know, in conversations we've had so far, there's a lot of what's in here that we already do, that we're already committed to, so that we can make the recruitment and support of people with disabilities something that we can celebrate. So there isn't a big we can't do it. It just is very difficult for us to be able to prove some of the statistics that they might be looking for.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. And it was actually very, very similar. I want to pick up on Linda's response there. I appreciate that things might be difficult, but that doesn't mean to say we don't do them. And I think it would be really helpful to have a campaign internally to start with to encourage more people who work for us already to be more open about their disability. And I appreciate that not everyone might regard their experiences as being disabled. so there's maybe an awareness raising campaign there, and I wonder if that's something that we can proactively undertake. I think if we can be seen as leaders in our community and ensure that we do not stigmatise people with disabilities, it would encourage more people to record their protected characteristics. I certainly think it's worth doing, and I would be encouraging us to take that forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on to comments? Is there any comments? I saw Councillor Whiteside's hand first. Councillor Gregg. Nobody at home. Right, Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost. Happy to support this motion today, and I'd like to commend the Council for the work they're doing at the moment, and hopefully the progress that is to come. I think actually the actions of the Council are more important than the box ticking, particularly when people are reluctant to come forward and declare a disability. But I do commend the work that's happened to date.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, whoever that was. Yeah.
Keeps going off.
Stop touching it.
I'm not touching it.
Third time lucky. Yes, I would fully support this motion. A bit like ultimately this is what this comes down to, is equality, and that's what we all want and want to try and achieve. Similar to the motion that was brought forward by Councillor Melville, I think it was last year, with regards to equality. This is absolutely no different, and we should all be fully supporting this one.
Councillor Speed.
Yep, thank you. Equal employment opportunities for people with disability is not just a matter of legal compliance or social responsibility. It is a fundamental human right that reflects the values of our society. Employment is more than just a job. It's a means of social inclusion, a source of income, and a path to independence. For individuals with a disability, it represents the breaking of barriers and the shattering of stereotypes. It's about being valued for their abilities and not defined by their disabilities. However, the path to employment for people with disabilities is often fraught with obstacles, and we need to do all we can to eradicate them. I support this motion. However, hand in hand, we also need to be able to tackle some of the fundamental issues within our systems, within housing, within education, health and social care and transport, to help set the right starting blocks for people with a disability to flourish within our communities and to go on to fulfil their dreams and ambitions, including employment. Thank you.
I'm looking around for any further comments. Councillor Brace.
Yes, thanks, Provost. I do support this motion, and you know, I'm really quite enthusiastic about this, because I believe that work is a really good thing, whatever your state of health, whatever your abilities or disabilities, and I think it is to be encouraged. I myself became disabled 2 years ago, and I'm not recorded anywhere in Angus Council as being disabled. So that's one for you, Ms Thompson. You can put me down. That'll get us a wee bit further to where we're going in the box ticking side of things. But much more importantly, I think I need to be a wee bit more involved now, because I do have a bit of experience on what makes it difficult for people to work. You know, there's an awful lot directed at people who cannot work, who are housebound, who are not able to work in any way. But there's not nearly enough direction towards people who want to work, are capable of work, but we don't make it easy enough for them to participate. Thanks.
We've another couple of hands up now, so next hand up was Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much, Provost. As one who's disabled, being deaf, some people actually think it's quite funny if you can't hear, and it can actually be quite difficult and challenging. And I 100% support this. And having 2 grandchildren who are autistic, and I feel for their future something like this will certainly give them the chance to gain some dignity in their life as they go older, and give them some sense of worth and independence. So I'm fully behind this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Deputy Provost.
It's my turn now. I would really like to support this wholeheartedly and with total reservation, because I think disability, and we've heard certain disabilities made mention, and we forget about the unseen disabilities. And you'll have heard me in here speak about duty of care when we decide that maybe we should run on a meeting, etc., and we're not really considering that some people might have to leave the room because of their particular disability. So we just need to all be aware of things and be a wee bit kinder in that respect. And always remember, there's certain things that you can say at the start of meetings, and I would suggest that we might consider that, to be aware of people's characteristics, which they still have to reserve the right if they don't want to disclose it, because there are things that some people just do not want to disclose. So, well done. Thank you.
Councillor Doran, to sum up.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for the support and the comments that have been shared today. I think public sector organisations and government should be excellent examples of employers, and I wanted to raise awareness of this charter and the steps within it. It also touches on actually their relationships as well with other organisations, so people who they might work with on tenders or in other ways that aren't actually the council itself or aren't the government itself, because it touches on the behaviour of both. And I think that's important to remember, that we need to make sure that we're doing the best we can and also encourage others to do the best that they can as well. There's a lot of challenges around this. It's not all challenges that are the steps that workplaces can take to address it, but there's also social challenges around this as well, and that includes some of the conversations we've had earlier today around housing and access as well. So thank you all very much for the support for that. That was it.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. So, do we agree the motion? Thank you. Moving on swiftly to number 6, the results of the Arbroath, West Letham and Freecombe by-election, and the Chief Executive may wish to introduce this report.
Thank you. And yes, I'll keep it brief. So the purpose of this report is to advise members of the outcome of the Arbroath West, Letham and Freecombe by-election, which, as you know, was held on the 25th of April. We know by introduction earlier that Councillor Cruikshanks was successful in that election and has joined us here today. The detail in the report sets out the number of votes for each of the candidates, and there is also further breakdown and information available as is required through the elections and voting section on our website. You'll see there that the total number of valid votes cast was 4,010 and the turnout was 29.4%. Happy if there are any questions, but if not, happy also just to move on. Thank you.
Is there any questions? Councillor Melville.
Yes, thanks, Provost. It was obviously there was an issue throughout the process with the allocation of postal votes, and I just wondered what assurances that the council is able to provide for people that in the future these kinds of issues will be addressed.
Thank you very much for that question. So yes, absolutely, there was a minor issue in terms of the number of ballots that were not delivered to the correct address. We understand there was a manual handling issue, but there is a full report available to ourselves, to myself and Sarah Forsyth, who's managing our elections process. We're in close contact with the providers around how that might have arisen and what steps they will be taking in the future. But our understanding is it's unlikely unlikely to be replicated for a large-scale election because that tends to be an automated process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Anyone want to make any comments? No? That's wonderful. Thank you very much. So therefore, it is recommended that the Council note that Jack Alexander James Cruikshanks is duly elected as the Councillor for Arbroath West, Letham and Freecombe Ward of Angus Council. Agreed. Right, moving on to appointments of these committees now with the change. The first one we have is the Communities Committee. Councillor Wan, can you do a nomination and who's your seconder?
I do. Councillor Jack Cruikshank for Communities, and seconder is Councillor Gavin Nicol. Lovely. Councillor Craig Ford, seconded again by Councillor Gavin Nicol.
Thank you. And Policy and Resources Committee.
Councillor Jack Cruikshank, seconded again by Councillor Gavin.
Oh, sorry. Moving on to number 8, Agile Working and Estates Review. Mr. Graham Daly may wish to introduce this report, but prior to any comments, yes, yeah.
Just in terms of standing orders, do we need to, and this is a genuine question, do we not need to approve the appointments, or do we just take them as read? I'm not seeking to contest the appointments. It's just in terms of standing orders.
Yeah. Yes. We're taking that as read. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Okay, right. I think we're now going to go into recess. The main reason is to try and get the technology sorted out, and then we'll come back in. So we'll also take this as a comfort break as well. So we will take 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much.
John, could you stop the live stream, please?
Great. Number 8, the Agile Working and Estates Review. Graham Daly, you may wish to introduce this report, but I want to bring it to everyone's attention that prior to any comments being made on item 8, do members wish to consider the contents of the exempt appendix at that stage? Yes. Yes. So just a reminder that when we come back into the public to consider the recommendations, there will be opportunities for questions and comments when we come back from that private meeting that we'll be having. Okay, over to I say that to you every time, Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, everyone. This report seeks approval from members to market Angus House. If approved, Angus House will be marketed for part lease, full lease or sale for a period of up to 18 months. This will inform future estate rationalisation options with a follow-up report to Council after 18 months or earlier if necessary. The proposed marketing exercise would be carried out to inform potential options for further estate rationalisation and assist our future decision-making. The success of our Agile programme that has enabled Angus Council staff to work flexibly and to a work style that is best suited to their role has led to surplus capacity within our head office building. This does present an opportunity to further rationalise our estate, and it is highlighted that the Agile 3 programme was included in the change plan that was agreed by Council in February of this year. The Agile programme has already delivered significant benefits. Since its inception in 2015, we have realised over £3 million in recurring revenue savings, and we have generated capital receipts of over £1 million. And also, we estimate we've reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 298 tonnes. The success of the programme has been possible thanks to the dedication and resilience of our staff, and we remain committed to finding the best approach to support our colleagues in service delivery while effectively utilising office space and Council's resources. I'm joined by the author of the report, Gavin Balfour, who will answer any questions you may have regarding the content of the report. Thank you, Provost.
I think we now go into private.
John, could we stop the live stream?
We're just in the public just now to let anyone know that we're going into a recess.
We are now back into the live stream, and we have further things to discuss. So we're going to take a 15-minute recess. No, sorry, 10-minute recess, and we will then be back again to the public meeting. Thank you.
John, could you stop?
Now, moving back to item agenda number 8, Agile Working and Estates Review. This is the point in time where I ask, is there any further questions and comments to do with the paper that is in public? Any questions? Any questions for the paper that's in public? No. Any comments? Councillor Cheap.
Notice of amendment.
Councillor Cheap, notice of amendment. Okay. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Melville. This is the hand that I saw first. Sorry, Councillor Dunn, I did see his hand. Melville.
Point of clarification, Provost.
Yes.
Are we in the public section now, or are we still in private?
No, we're in public.
Has the live stream been started?
Yes.
It has.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's all up and running. Is there further? That was you've given us your amendment. Is there any further comments at this point in time? No. What's your amendment, Councillor Cheap? Yep.
Just for information's sake, numbers 1 and 2 of the recommendations are kept. Number 3 will change to seeks council officers to undertake a review of all of the council's remaining properties in Forfar, and when appropriate present an options appraisal to elected members that considers their future use based on potential lease income or sale value, required capital expenditure, building suitability, environmental impact, review implications and service delivery. And 4 is that this is to be undertaken while the marketing of Angus House Forfar for part lease, if subdivided into smaller suites, full lease or sale for a period of 18 months or more is underway at the same time. So basically, it's basically saying we're going to permit go with the marketing, but we want that appraisals done at the same time as it's being done and reported back to council.
Is that financial? I think I'd ask probably Councillor Ian Lorimer at this point in time. Is it financially competent? This. Yeah. Yep.
Just call a point of order on this,
Yes.
because previously we've tried to bring an amendment from debate, and we're told that that could only be a deferral as an amendment within that. So I just wanted to check the standing orders on this, relating to bringing an amendment that involves further change at this point in the process.
Absolutely. No, you definitely
that was
need
it,
that.
because that's been called up before. Thanks.
I think the rules have changed in the last from the that.
So in terms of the scheme of governance that was approved in December, there is an option that a competent motion or amendment where it is clear that is arising from the debate can come forward. So that's what Councillor Cheap has. Okay, thank you.
So yes, Mr. Lorimer. Yep. I don't know if we do. Come on, yeah. And
Councillor, that's it now. Yeah, thank you, Provost. You asked the question about financial competence. Ultimately, it's your decision around financial competence. But my advice is that I spoke to Councillor Cheap earlier today in relation to the proposed amendment. Want to be just something to clarify in terms of for properties. I think you are only talking, Councillor Cheap, about office accommodation properties, not schools, for example. I probably at this point need some advice from my property colleagues in terms of the scale of that additional work in order to be able to determine whether there are financial implications or not.
Yeah, thanks, Ian, and yeah, I'm happy to come in here. So, just for confirmation, Councillor Cheap will look at this building, the county buildings, Angus House, and Ravenswood. I think the plan would be for us to do this options appraisal probably in stages and take our first tranche look at it. I think we'd like probably to involve elected members in that options appraisal process rather than perhaps do some work that maybe wasn't needed. I think I'd like to do it as efficiently as possible if we're looking at the 18-month period. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah, thanks for this. It's more not to prolong this. It's on the basis that you did the same, what you presented for option 1 and option 2. I was just taking this as option 3 and present it in the same way. So it's not needing not an awful lot of work done on that. It's just another property you're going to be viewing on the same basis you've done 1 and 2. Or properties, apologies. Properties.
Yeah, okay, I think we could resource that.
Point of clarification, Provost.
Yes.
As Councillor Dorn pointed out, the sounding orders, and they were then read back, so it was okay to put forward an amendment if it came up during the course of the debate. However, the conversation that's just taken place there between Mr Lorimer and Councillor Cheap has intimated that they had a discussion about this amendment prior to the debate starting, so just wanted to clarify whether that amendment is still valid.
I'll take legal advice on that.
So you're right. Councillor Cheap did actually have his amendment in before the required deadline yesterday. So, but Councillor Cheap did intimate that he may or may not present that at this time. So we have had the required consultation with officers in terms of that amendment. But Councillor Dorn's point is that any amendment can come forward as a result of debate as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Just want to
clarify. Yeah, no, absolutely right. So I take it we just go to the vote then. All right. Sorry, no, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify if you wanted somebody to present the motion.
Yeah.
And I would like to recommend approval of the papers as they stand. Thank you.
You're going right from so that's this. Your motion is standing, and you second it. Thank you. Speak on to bring things to.
Thank you, Provost. I just think we're in limbo until we actually go to the market. I don't think we can make any decisions. I've articulated that earlier in the debate. We can do options appraisals coming out of our ears. Until we go to the market, we don't know what the position is. So I think we should press on. And we've had a commitment to listen to all our opinions and ideas during the period when the property is being marketed.
Thank you, Provost. And in seconding, I fully back the position of the leader of Angus Council.
Thank you. And therefore, I think we can just go to the vote. Isn't it? Yep. Yep.
Okay. So, Provost, the motion by Councillor Whiteside, seconded by Councillor Braze, is to approve the recommendations as detailed in the report. The amendment by Councillor Melville is to approve recommendations 1 and 2 as detailed in the report, to seek council officers to undertake a review of all council's remaining properties in Forfar, and when appropriate present an options appraisal to elected members that considers their future use based on potential lease income or sale value, required capital expenditure, building suitability, environmental impact review, implications and service delivery, and that the options appraisal be undertaken whilst Angus House is being marketed. Please vote motion or amendment. Provost?
Motion.
Deputy Provost? Amendment. Councillor Beattie?
Amendment.
Councillor Bell?
Amendment.
Councillor Braze?
Motion.
Councillor Cheap?
Amendment.
Councillor Cowdy?
Amendment.
Councillor Cruikshanks?
Motion.
Motion.
Councillor Durno? Councillor Fothing?
Motion.
Councillor Gall? Motion. Councillor Gregg?
Motion.
Councillor MacDonald?
Motion.
Councillor Meehan?
Amendment.
Councillor Melville.
Amendment.
Councillor Proctor.
Motion.
Councillor Scott.
Motion.
Councillor Shepherd.
Amendment.
Councillor Speed. Amendment. Councillor Stewart.
Amendment.
Councillor Wan. Councillor Whiteside. The motion is carried by 14 votes to 11.
And that closes the meeting at 7:32 this evening.
17.
17.
It's been a long day.
John.
Thank you very much.
John, can we start the live stream?